So our first question for tonight goes, Dear Luang Por, how to deal with a guilt complex from growing up in a Christian society? Thank you.
Well, sounds like you already understand something about your past, your upbringing, and your what we call cultural conditioning. I've always found the most direct way to deal with different kinds of suffering is develop mindfulness, meditation, and things start to become more apparent. So literally, investigate what is this guilt complex. Possibly it's a habit of mind, you might say, where you feel negative about yourself or things you've said or things that are coming up in your life, maybe the way you react to things. We get guilty about things we see as indulgences, or guilty about being lazy, or being guilty about being angry. You have all these kind of views, I'm this kind of person, that kind of person. Well, this is what meditation helps us to deal with, isn't it? But first of all, maybe just learn a bit of basic meditation practice, developing mindfulness, for instance, mindfulness of breathing, but that's not all. So that you have a little bit more self-control and this ability to look back at your own body and mind as from moment to moment. Obviously, it's not something you can do all the time maybe, but sometimes when you've got free time, do some meditation. Improve your level of mindfulness and this ability just to look back at yourself, so that when what you're calling guilt complex arises, you can be more aware of it and say, well, what is it? It's a feeling, it's a thought, a certain thought process, it's a feeling. You get to know maybe what sort of things trigger it, what situations bring it up. But what is it? And how long does it last? And it's a very standard kind of Buddhist reflection is, however bad your mental state is, however bad you feel, whatever the negative emotion is you've been feeling, is it there all the time? And almost certainly you should be able to answer no. It's something that comes and goes. There'll be certain times when you feel guilty and other times when you don't. That in itself is showing you something that, you are not guilt. Guilt is a passing state of mind that arises, passes away, and that gives you your pathway out of it, as it were, to become more aware of it as a temporary state of mind that can be let go of, and you don't have to identify so strongly with something that is just passing. Sure, when it comes up, it can be very powerful and overwhelm you, but you have to keep practicing, don't you? Keep developing the mindfulness and investigate. Am I this feeling? Am I this thought? These thoughts, where are they coming from? How long do they last? Can I change them? And that's another aspect of, say, guilt. It's probably a more negative feeling directed to yourself and sometimes also other people from your past maybe. Can you change the way you think about yourself and others? Introduce more kindness and compassion, more forgiveness to help you let go. You have to see what works for you. But, it may be just a habit of mind. You always find fault with yourself. You always see you're this sort of person who's done all these bad things. Maybe ask yourself, well, what good things have I done? Bring in the opposite way of thinking. When you look at yourself, you're a collection of memories and thoughts and emotions. Well, don't just focus on the bad stuff, the guilty stuff, the negative stuff. Ask yourself, well, what good have I done? What good things have happened to me? What good things have I done? To balance it up a bit. And if you really can't find anything in your sort of past or your memories or your thoughts, well, manufacture some. Train yourself to focus on the idea, the mental state of kindness, compassion, forgiveness. If that's what's needed, if you're feeling very guilty and unhappy with yourself, well, bring in some more compassion for yourself as a human being. Talk to yourself more nicely. If you've been talking to yourself in a very negative way, maybe talk to yourself better. Sometimes that's as simple as that, isn't it? You just learn to be more encouraging and reassuring to yourself when you're feeling guilty. There's plenty we can do, but take it as a practice, as part of your meditation, how to improve your state of mind, how to bring in some more positive, supportive qualities of mind to deal with this thing you've identified as a cause of suffering.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next we have a live question. So I'll ask our participant to unmute.
Hello, Ajahn Kalyano. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, hi. I have a question about letting go. When I have thoughts that may proliferate a lot, or at this point, any thought, I go back to my mantra or to the body. And if I'm infatuated with someone, I can do a suba or just stop contact, no? But some days ago, I heard an Ajahn say that we should let go of the people that we love the most. And that seems like a good idea, but I don't know how to do that, no? So, particularly with my mother, because I've been her caregiver for many years, and most of my life and decisions all go around her, no? But I also see the suffering in that, no, in losing her. So how would letting go of her would look like actually, and how to move towards that? No, as you said in the Dhamma talk, taking into account that we still have or I still have deluded mind and with coarse defilements. No, so how to do that?
Well, one of the chants we do regularly in the monastery, and you can do at home as well, is the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. And one of those subjects is we say, everything I love and like, so that includes people, I'll become separated from. For sure, we're definitely going to separate from everyone that we love and like in this world, and particularly our parents. The bond is very strong. So this is the Buddha's recommendation. Frequent recollection means every day remind yourself, one day we won't be here. Probably your parents will die before you, but you never quite know. It's not a sure thing, but probably your parents will pass away before you. Every day remind yourself of that fact. One day they won't be here. So this is not to make you depressed, it's to make you realize the impermanence of life, and that even though you love them and you're grateful for everything your parents have done for you, and you might be showing that by caring for them and helping them in different ways, you're also very aware by reflecting in this way that one day they won't be there, because none of us last forever. You might find this helps you to deal with the attachment, the love. Because love, when we're not careful, it becomes blind, doesn't it? You just want them there, you want them there always, they make you happy, the idea of them, thinking of them, that being there makes you happy. But when you remind yourself one day they won't be there, it kind of wakes you up a bit to the truth, or clears away some of that blindness. But I mean, practicing non-attachment to people you love doesn't mean to say you stop caring for them, or you neglect them, or you give up on them. It just means you still do the things you might do for them. you look after them if that's what's required. If it's somebody like a parent who's getting older, well, there may be many things you do for them. And there may be many things you're grateful for. You can remember what they've said and done for you, and it makes you feel happy. But also you're remembering that this is all impermanent and one day they'll be gone. This should help, because love also can bring up a little bit of anger as well, can't it? You love someone, when they don't do what you want or they do something you're not happy with, you get angry because of that attachment. But when you think about the impermanence of the relationship and the fact they won't be there forever, you don't want to dwell in anger, because you're thinking, they'll be gone. I'm really not going to hold on to this anger. Let it go. So you can forgive them easily, hopefully. You can let go, and you just do your best for them, knowing that at some point they'll be gone. And that's about all you can do, isn't it? Of course, we love the people who have helped us, but we have to balance it with some wisdom, some understanding that life is impermanent and they won't be there forever.
Okay, thank you, Ajahn. I do the 5 subjects for frequent recollection, but still, as you say, it's like there's still a lot way to go, I think.
Well, it's one of the hardest attachments to let go of, so don't be too hard on yourself. Probably the best if you really want to let go of attachment to parents, develop jhana, develop states of samadhi, deep states of samadhi, so you can bring your mind to complete equanimity, even towards your parents, and you look at them in a slightly different way. Then you can start training yourself to look at them in a different way. Then it's not looking at them with just love and grasping, but you look at them with genuine compassion, but also there's the wisdom, the understanding that they will one day separate from you, and there's no way around that. If you think about it, if you're still lost in your love, that attachment is blinding you. It means you can't do the best for your parents. You really want to do the best for them, you have to bring your mind to equanimity, because if you don't have your equanimity, you're going to be prey to emotions. So when they do what you want, you're happy, but when they don't do what you want, you're unhappy, and your emotions will interfere with doing the best thing for them. Sometimes we make mistakes. We say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, because of our emotions. So actually it's best for them, best for us, if we can bring our mind to one-pointedness, stillness, samadhi. The more samadhi you practice, it will help your relationship and your understanding better.
Okay, I'll do that. Many thanks, Ajahn.
Okay, next question. There are quite a few questions tonight. And the next one goes: what is the function, if any, of arupa ayatanas for
beyond suffering? The arupa jhanas are, these are refined states of samadhi, stillness, that particularly people who live more in a hermetic kind of existence, really cut off from the world, may develop. And they can certainly speed up the practice of insight for nibbana, because if you've developed enough samadhi to the point of experiencing arupa jhanas, your mind is very, very peaceful, refined, very clear. So then to turn to contemplate the suffering of attachment to the 5 khandhas, this body and mind, generally one sees the suffering very quickly and lets go of attachment very quickly. But not everyone will develop arupa jhanas. A lot of people won't have the time for that, or haven't developed samadhi enough in the past. So one thing to remember is the arupa jhanas, these formless jhanas, are based on the practice of the fourth jhana, rupa jhana. They come out of that. And so if one has attained the four jhanas, rupa jhanas, then one will also understand how to develop the arupa jhanas, even if one hasn't done that, and can let go of any attachment that might form to the bliss, the refined bliss of the arupa jhanas, which could happen. So the fourth jhana, rupa jhana, form jhana, is more material jhana, is the best, you might say, the best level of samadhi to develop vipassana and insight into letting go of all attachment. As I said, not everybody really develops the arupa jhanas or skill with the arupa jhanas. I met a few monks who have, and they're very peaceful, and they have an amazing ability with their mind to know all kinds of special things, because anyone who's developed arupa jhanas generally has developed a lot of psychic ability. But it takes a lot of time, a lot of quiet meditation away from the world, and not everyone has that opportunity.
Saro Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn, during meditation practice, sometimes my mind seems to go deep into itself and I feel like a vacuum inside. The mind becomes thick, dense and black with some shining points. Sometimes the mind feels like a kid that wants to break a cot. What should I do at those times, or just simply observe the mind's activities and let them go?
I would just maintain as much mindfulness from moment to moment as you can. So usually that means sticking with your meditation object, however refined it gets, and just watch and learn. And all those things you've described there, well, I'm sure they all were experiences that arose and pass away. So that's the first thing you can learn, isn't it? They're impermanent, different states of mind or experiences, whether it's more feelings or visual images, or mental states, feeling like you're breaking out of something or want to break something. Doesn't matter really. You're observing different reactions of the mind. If you can stay centered with your mindfulness, well, then you'll see everything as impermanent, arising and ceasing. And what is impermanent is not a self. It's not really a person. These are just different mental states, different kinds of karma arising and ceasing. And you can learn from that, and maybe things will change over time, as you probably found already. You might have a certain experience in meditation one day, but it's never repeated or very rarely repeated, and that's quite normal, I think. So just number one is keep mindful, keep aware, and try not to react too much to all this stuff. Just observe it and learn from it where you can. If there's any insight to be gained, good. If there isn't, well, it's just another experience that arose and passed away.
Sadhu. Next question. This next question starts with a quote. The most direct path to enlightenment is to never let the mind fall into liking or disliking, by Ajahn Chah. What does this mean, and how could it be possible to do this?
Well, again, try some meditation, and you'll notice when you're truly mindful, you have a certain self-control, and we say your mind is in the middle, meaning you're knowing your experience, but you're not falling either into liking or disliking. So you can still, you're still aware, you're not asleep, you're aware, say a different kinds of thoughts or memories pop into your mind, and some of them will be pleasant and some of them will be unpleasant, and they would normally trigger a reaction. You know, I like this or I don't like this. You know, trains of thoughts would normally arise, putting you into different moods, sometimes very brief, sometimes for long periods of time you're caught into a certain kind of mood, pleasant or unpleasant, depending on whatever it is you're thinking about. But now you're practicing mindfulness, you're observing and you're maintaining this sense of detached awareness or equanimity, where you're still aware of the pleasant attributes or characteristics of something, or the unpleasant or painful characteristics of something, but you're not letting that proliferate the mind and put you into a mood or, you know, take you away from the present moment. You're just observing pleasure, pleasant aspects, pain, painful aspects. You're observing that, but not getting lost in it. That's the whole point. You're maintaining mindfulness, keeping your mind centered. That's your aim. If you keep doing that over and over and over and over again, eventually there'll be nothing left that can pull your mind to delusion or create or proliferate your mind anymore. You just know everything is impermanent, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. It arises, it ceases, and you fully understand that's the nature of this universe and this body and mind. Obviously, in the beginning, you'll just have maybe short bursts of that, short moments where you feel very calm and equanimous, even though some very pleasant thing is coming your way or some very unpleasant, painful thing is coming your way. You know it, but you're not attached to it. But then you give in again, and you start wanting for the various pleasant things or wanting to get away from unpleasant, painful things, and you're back with your normal kind of thinking and reacting and emotions coming up. But then you might practice a bit more and you get back to that state of equanimity and observing, and you have this tiresome but unavoidable sort of experience of periods of mindfulness and periods of no mindfulness, back and forth, and you just have to be very patient through the periods where you lose your mindfulness and you're stuck in all your reactions and emotions again.
Sadhu. Another quote from the same questioner. I am neither above, below, near, nor far from you, but with mindfulness you will always be with me. What does this mean? This was from a quote from Umpo Anand's book.
Well, sometimes it's a little bit hard to explain quotes that are just taken out and you don't see the context and what the speaker was saying before or after. So forgive me if I don't give a perfect explanation, but this is a few different teachers have talked like this. You're neither above nor below. These are all concepts of the ordinary conditioned mind. I'm above, I'm below, I'm near, I'm far. And when the sense of self is dissolving under the practice of mindfulness and insight, and the sense of self is disappearing, dissolving, well then the sense of being close, far, near, above, below, all of the moving, not moving, all of these normal kind of concepts and descriptions are disappearing maybe from one's experience. So we're talking about the mind of samati and probably also the mind of vipassana as well. It's like that, where you're not attaching to anything and you have enough mindfulness to not attach to things, not attach to this sense of a self, me, mine, myself in the middle of my experience, being above, being below. If you keep investigating, maybe that sense of self disappears. Well, then the sense of being above, below, near, far all disappears at the same time.
Sadhu. Another question from the same questioner. When we see someone acting greedily, we know she is greedy. When we see someone speak harshly and aggressively, we know he does that. So is this a judgment or discernment? Are these conceited views, or merely are they reflections, knowing on other beings' behaviors?
Well, you have to answer that yourself, because I'm not there. When you're making these observations, if you're practicing discernment, it won't be leading to suffering. You'll just be knowing something. So you go, oh, that person really likes their food, so they're tucking into whatever it is that they like. And you may be aware, oh, they've probably got some greed there. You might not absolutely know unless you can read their mind, but maybe their behavior seems to display greed. Okay, you can know that, but you're not creating any suffering, you're just observing. That would be the mind of discernment. But the mind of judgment may be like, or conceit might be, oh, they're so greedy. What a greedy person. You start thinking a lot of negative thoughts about them and form a biased view of that person in your mind, and next time you see them you're saying, oh, here comes the greedy person, and you're already thinking that before they've done anything. There's a difference, isn't there? And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. You can have a little bit of discernment, but some conceit can slip in as well. Or you can have a lot of conceit, but sometimes there's a little bit of discernment there as well. And in practice it's like that. There's a lot of different emotions and different insights coming up, often quite fast and mixed together, because mind is like that. There's moments of wholesome moments and unwholesome moments, wholesome mental states, unwholesome mental states arising and falling and back and forth. So one moment there's some defilement there, and then the next moment some mindfulness and clarity and insight, and then back to defilement. So sometimes that's very fast, sometimes a bit slower. But discernment, or what we might call insight, wisdom or discernment, is always going to bring you some peace, some clarity and peace. It's not going to increase your suffering. Whereas a defilement such as conceit, aversion perhaps, is always going to be accompanied by an unpleasant feeling, mental agitation, some suffering. So you have to look at the results of your discernment and see, is it real discernment, or is it, like you say, just judging or criticizing someone, making you feel unhappy?
Sadhu. Another one. How to tell the difference between understanding and knowing? I think I understand. The body is not the mind, and the mind is not the body. But it is not the same as I know this, right?
Well, similar to the last question, like true knowing in the Buddhist sense might be what we call bhavanamaya panya, like the insight or wisdom that arises from bhavana, from the mind that is still and investigating the truth, and it leads to peace of mind, and leads to defilements being seen and let go of, leads to peace of mind. Understanding could refer to that, because it depends how the people are using these words, and different people use the words slightly differently. But understanding can also mean more of just an intellectual understanding. So you hear the talk or read the book and hear the words, and you understand what they mean. You could say anger is suffering, but to really know anger is suffering, you would automatically let go of your anger if you really knew that. You may understand it as suffering, but you're not yet able to let go because your mindfulness and insight isn't sharp enough to do that. So that's, it might be a degree of the depth of your knowing, whether you really know with the heart and can let go, or you know with the brain, the intellect first, which is, you've got to start somewhere, and you move inwards to the point where you really know rather than just understand. So usually that's how I use these words, but I think people use the words differently.
Sadhu. And the last quote from this questioner. Don't take your life personally. I don't know how not to do this. Can Ajahn please explain more?
Again, be more aware of when you are or how you are taking your life personally. Usually it means you're identifying with everything, the body, the feelings, the thoughts, the memories as me, myself, my thoughts, my feelings, my body. It's all very personal. And probably, I don't know for sure, but probably when you're saying that, this taking of things personally is setting you up to suffer, isn't it? It's everything you think, you take it very personally. So if you have a very negative thought, you say, oh, I'm a bad person. If you have a very positive, good thought, oh, I'm a very good person. I'm simplifying here. But even taking yourself to be a good person can set you up for suffering, because if something later on comes along, you have another thought that is not a very good thought. You say, oh, I thought I was a good person. No, now I'm no longer a good person. Oh no. So, the more we take our thoughts and emotions personally, the more complex our mind becomes, and the more complicated life becomes, and the more we suffer. And then also with external things, things happen to us. Some people take everything very personal. So, you're walking to work and it starts raining, and it's like the world is against me. It's raining. You see, it's a conspiracy. I know. It could be something as simple as that, something very ordinary, very natural, that's nothing personal at all, but you take it very personally. When things go right, oh, my life is so blessed, I'm so lucky, such good fortune. And when things go badly, oh, I'm terrible, and my life is cursed. You're taking it all personally. And some things obviously are related to us through our karma, what we've said and done. But some things are not, but we are taking it all very personally. So you notice this when you meditate. When you turn your attention inwards, you notice how personally we take things, and sometimes we completely miss the point. So if you ever catch yourself missing the point, or jumping to a conclusion, or misunderstanding, misreading something and taking it very personally when it's not, but you work that out, you see that, take a pause and take a moment and say, see, look how personally I took that when it wasn't. And that will help alert you to how much we do this, and maybe you gain some understanding, insight, understanding there. And next time you may be a bit more cautious before you jump to a conclusion that, the world is against you, or this is very, very personal. You maybe say, oh, hold on, maybe I'm rushing it a bit. It's not what I think. Best of all is, again, come back to the meditation, practice mindfulness, bring your mind to a sense of stillness, one-pointedness through your meditation, and then you have a real sense of the detached awareness, the unpersonal, impersonal, which helps you to see where you're forming a personality out of everything else. The still mind is there to show you what is not still, and when you take everything personally, the mind is not still. It's moving, it's creating, it's making all kinds of moods out of things, and it's not very peaceful. So when your mind is peaceful and still, that will highlight when it's not still, won't it? It will help you to see that.
Sadhu Luang Por. Next we have another live question.
Thank you for your teachings. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you, yes, hello.
Hello. My question is how to balance between patiently enduring and wisely reflecting with regards to the 5 hindrances during meditation.
Well, with the hindrances, they're all disturbing, aren't they, in one way or another? They agitate us, disturb us, distract us. They prevent goodness arising in the heart, whether it's just simple on the level of generosity and kindness, or the level of precepts, or more commonly on the level of meditation and training your mind in meditation. They are what block the good things from arising, the wholesome states of mind, the mindfulness, the wisdom from arising. So, what was the question again? Just remind me. What was the question again?
Question is how to balance between patiently enduring.
Oh yeah, patient endurance
reflecting.
and wise reflection. Yeah, well, you can't practice wise reflection until you've established some patient endurance, at least one level. I think patient endurance probably precedes wise reflection. You'll find if you're impatient, it's very difficult to reflect wisely on anything, isn't it? So with the hindrances, they come up. Sometimes you do just have to be very patient as you work to establish some awareness and then reflect back on them. Sometimes you can reflect back on hindrances after the event. It's too late in the moment to stop them overtaking your mind. You get angry, or you become sleepy, or you become distracted in some way. But later you can still reflect back on them and still learn something about, you might say, past mistakes or past experiences. If you were thinking about something with a lot of anger or a lot of desire and greed for a while, you couldn't stop that. You could say you were patiently enduring, but probably you weren't even patiently enduring, you were just indulging. But then later you reflect back, oh, look how I fell for that one. I became so angry, or I was so greedy, or I was so worried. And maybe you can even learn after the event the suffering of it, the disadvantages of falling into that way of thinking or that mind state, so that next time you're a little bit more alert to the dangers and the suffering of that kind of mind state. As you're falling into it, this is going to be suffering and this is not good for you. So sometimes you can learn after the event. Sometimes whatever you're doing, your mindfulness is either not quite strong enough, or the particular mental state, the hindrance or the defilement that's coming up is so powerful, you just have to kind of observe yourself in that situation and just keep as much mindfulness and endure as best you can. But patient endurance is really practiced with a bit of awareness. It's like, I must patiently endure this because there's nothing I can do. I mean, the obvious one is physical pain. Often physical pain, there's not much you can do about it sometimes. But also mental pain, you remember something that brings you a lot of sadness or unhappiness in one way or another. And you just have to be with that for a while. So you consciously be patient with that feeling. So it's something it's an intention, isn't it? You're intending to be patient with something that you know is disturbing or unpleasant. And maybe you don't have enough mental strength to reflect on it in any meaningful way other than just to observe. And then later, as I was saying, later you reflect back because you had a certain amount of patience, certain amount of awareness, you were consciously being patient through some difficulty. Later, you probably have some memory of it, some understanding based on that memory, so then you wisely reflect after the event. But even in difficult situations, say somebody, if it's to do with another person, maybe another person is very difficult with you, they're criticizing you, or they're aggressive, or you just feel uncomfortable with this person, but there's nothing you can do. They are the way they are, and maybe you feel uncomfortable and you can't do much about that. So you say, oh, I better be patient with this. But you can also have a certain level of wise reflection. You say, whatever you do, don't argue with them. Whatever you do, don't do something silly with this person. Don't do something you'll regret. You may have a little bit of wise reflection going on, not enough to free your mind from suffering in that situation, but enough just to stop you making it worse or breaking your precepts or something like that. So I think these qualities, they're sort of supporting each other and work together. Sometimes you just have to be patient until you can wisely reflect. Sometimes you can be patient and have a little bit of wise reflection just to help you through. Just depends on the context, doesn't it? What the situation is, what's going on. But if you have the attitude, I'm going to practice, I'm going to try and learn and be with this, well, you're setting yourself up to be patient, learn and wisely reflect through something. That's your goal, and you just try and achieve it the best you can in the different situations you find yourself in. Obviously, it's one thing when you meditate where you're in maybe in a suitable environment, it's peaceful, you've got time, you can really put effort into being mindful and then really investigate. That's one thing. Then there'll be times in your life when you actually have very little time to think on your feet and you're in a situation where you're stressed or you're in pain or somebody's giving you a hard time, or then your practice of patience and wise reflection might be very superficial and very basic. You're just surviving. You're just hanging on until the conditions change. So partly it'll be dependent on where you are, what you're doing, won't it?
Specifically, when I meditate, I always have tension my body around the shoulder area. So I'm not sure if I should just endure and continue with the Bhutto while acknowledging that this tension is here, or to watch that this tension is impermanent, not mine to control.
Well, if you meditate regularly, maybe you can experiment a bit and see what works, and you'll probably find on different occasions different things work. So sometimes it is best just to stick with your meditation object and ignore everything else. And you just stick with Buddha, and whatever else is coming up in the background, you just let it go, let it go, let it go, and keep returning to Buddha. Sometimes that is the best option and it works, but sometimes it doesn't work. So what do you do when it doesn't work? Well, another option maybe is to try and investigate. Even a painful, disturbing experience, sometimes you just kind of grab it and you say, oh, this pain, okay, what is it, where is it? And you send your mind to that painful feeling, for example, and see if you can learn anything about it, investigate it, ask questions. One is just, how much can I be with this feeling? Maybe I can be with it a bit more than I thought, because most people assume that they can't stand pain and can't be with much pain at all. But if you consciously send your mind to be aware of that pain, wherever it is in the body, maybe it's more bearable than you think. It's still painful, but maybe you can last with it a bit longer than you think. And you don't necessarily have to move or do anything yet. You're just investigating, and that will help break down certain misperceptions, barriers about pain. You may still reach a point where you say, oh, I can't stand this anymore, I've got to move, or I have to change posture or get up, whatever. But at least you'll have learned something before you move. So it's nearly always a valid option. If you really can't stay with your meditation object, we'll try investigating the pain, even briefly, before you move, before you change, and you'll learn something. That would be my recommendation.
Sadhu. Next question. Dear Lumpur, is there an English translated sutra book or books that you can recommend for us laymen to start reading and learn? Thank you.
Oh, they're all good. Kind of a common one that people begin with is what we call the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle-length sayings, very popular. Some people like the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical sayings, because they have lots of very short suttas that often have quite good meaning because they're short, they're kind of easy to read and then just ponder. Some people like the Dhammapada because they like these little verses that can be kind of poetic but also bring up Dhamma reflections, and you can also read the backstory of each of those Dhammapada verses, so it gives you a little bit of a story around it. So really, you know, as I said, it's all good. You might have to look at try a few things through a few different books of the sutras and see what you find interesting. When I began reading sutras, I found it very difficult, so I had to do it as a kind of ascetic practice and make myself read a sutta every day. So I used to do that at night before I went to sleep. I'd read a sutta and I wouldn't go to bed until I read a sutta. So that was me. But over the years, you know, once you learn the language of the sutras a bit better, you understand the concepts better, you meditate more, then it's a lot easier and they make more meaning and they maybe become quite enjoyable. So it may be an acquired taste for some people.
Saralungpo. Next question. Dear Ajahn Kalyano, thank you very much for the great Dhamma talk. Can you please talk further about how does the realization of anatta feel like? I understood that there is no self in the five khandhas, but somehow a subtle sense of self is still there. How to uproot it? Thank you.
How to uproot it? Well, keep practicing. That's the whole point. Of course there's a subtle sense of self still there, unless you're an arahant. Only the arahants do not have a subtle sense of self. Everyone else does. Even an anagami has a subtle sense of self. But, you know, anatta, how do you experience that? Well, like someone was asking earlier about taking everything personally. Well, when you have some insight into anatta, you do that less. You take everything less personally. So we were just talking about pain. So pain is a very common thing that people have to deal with in life and in meditation. So when you begin meditating and your mindfulness and wisdom is not well developed, every pain is a problem, isn't it? Even an itch can be a problem, and certainly pain. You take it very personally. You say, I don't like this pain, don't want this pain, and you move and you're agitated and maybe you stop meditating. But as your strength of mindfulness improves, your patience and endurance improves, your ability to investigate improves, maybe you can look at pain and say, yeah, there is an unpleasant feeling there, but it's, as Ajahn Chah used to say, it's just a feeling. It's not really mine. It doesn't own me and I don't own it. It's just an experience that I'm aware of, but it doesn't bother me. You can do that more and more. Sure, there'll still be pain that overcomes you and bothers you, but your ability to contemplate pain will probably improve if you keep meditating. So you start to see the lack of self in a painful feeling. Pleasure is also hard to see anatta because we like our pleasures and we enjoy it, but as you become more mindful, more equanimous, you can look at pleasure and say, that also is not self. What is impermanent clearly is not self because it disappears on you all the time. Things that disappear, they're not there anymore. Self implies something that you own, you have, it's there, it kind of exists, and you know it's part of you or you're part of it. But if you're seeing impermanence more and more, that often is one way into seeing anatta and not self, because all these things don't last. You ask yourself, in this world, everything I own and have and get involved with, people, possessions, places, when I die, what will I take with me? None of it. You don't take any of it with you. So you reflect on that and maybe it starts to change your attitudes a bit. You know, anatta at first is just, you know, slightly opening up to the possibility that you don't really own anything and even your thoughts are not really you. It may be just seeing the possibility of that and not clearly knowing anatta, but just sort of opening up to the idea. But over time, maybe you do have some experiences where you really see, it's not self. If you remove a sense of self from something that you were previously attaching to, what's left is going to be peace. We often say piti and sukha, some joy, happiness, the happiness of release, the putting down of the burden, the sense of self is carrying a burden, they say. So when you see not self in anything, you're putting down the burden, so it's less of a problem to you. You don't take it so personally, it's less suffering, you feel release, you feel happy, you feel good. That's the whole point of it. We're not practicing the Buddhism just to be unhappy, miserable people. We're practicing to be happy, and seeing or experiencing not self makes you happy. Maybe not in the worldly way of happy. It's more like in the sense of just no suffering. And that's something tangible. It's not just an idea. It's tangible. You are aware this mind is content, happy, at peace with whatever is going on in your mind, in your body, in the world around you. Even with this world and all its problems, you can still be at peace with that. Sounds a bit strange, but it's possible. Because the world is always going to have problems. It's not just this year that it has problems. Last year it did, and 100 years ago it did, and probably in 100 years' time it will too. So Nibbana is clearly not dependent on all the world's problems disappearing. It's more about you and how you relate to the world and its problems. Don't take them so personally.
Saro Lumpur. Our next questioner seems to have more of a thank you comment rather than a question, so I'll just read it out. Dear Lumpur, allow me to use this space to thank you for some past advice given here regards developing a wise and wholesome attitude towards my recurring illness from cancer. I felt very inspired and focused on embracing the attitude of Sabbe Sankara Anicca and dedicating my life to mindfulness, gratitude, and making merit. I was further inspired by witnessing how you, the Sangha, visiting monks, and the spiritual community attended to the passing of Venerable Tanio Bhikkhu, Alex Oliver. The memorial service, Dhamma talks, and finding out about his history was again very special. The generous sharing of Venerable Tanio's story, especially regards the last years of his life during the recurrence of his cancer, has been reassuring for me and even provided a sense of joy. May he have found Nibbana. Sadhu.
Yes, it's a good learning when you live with someone, a monk who is dying of an illness like cancer, but they're keeping all the monks' rules, meditating, and doing many acts of kindness and service at the same time is a very inspiring thing, because you see somebody who is dying skillfully. Most people in the world, I associate death with suffering, failure, the end, and just see it as something very no good and not to be talked about and something they don't want. But if you actually see someone dying skillfully, it's a great service to the world to see that. And so, many monks and lay people here at this monastery who witnessed that, everyone probably learned something from it. So even his death was a kind of gift to other people.
Sadhu. Next question. Dear Ajahn Kalyano, regarding our meditation practice, can you please talk and indicate how to recognize the openness or spaciousness quality of the mind, which is commonly known as emptiness, and deepen this realization? Thank you.
Oh, well, one thing you might consider is that whatever we call emptiness, openness, spaciousness of mind is already there. It's just it's covered over by the mental defilements. So you don't have to go anywhere or be anybody or do anything special. It's more about clearing away the clutter, isn't it? Our mind is full of chatter and clutter and emotions and wrong views and attachments. And in the practice, a lot of the practice is just about clearing all that away. And then you're more aware of what's actually there all the time anyway. So I've always found that a kind of reassuring way of looking at it, because it kind of, you might say it's a kind of lazy way as well. I like it because of that. It's like, oh, Nibbana is there already. The peaceful, pure, uncluttered, spacious mind, the empty mind is there already. I don't have to go anywhere. I just have to clear away what's blocking me from experiencing that. So that's one reflection I've used a lot. What do I need to clear away today? Where am I getting stuck, attached? What is covering over the radiance of the mind today? Maybe that can work for you as well.
Next question, Dear Luang Por. How can we know if we've entered the first jhana? Is it possible to enter the first jhana through walking meditation and chanting?
Well, you might not know for sure that you've entered the first jhana, but we have the textbook description. The Buddha talked about 5 factors: vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata, 5 factors of jhana. So I guess you could use that as a starting point. Are those qualities present or not? Another point is jhana requires stillness of body in order to attain stillness, one-pointedness of mind. So you'd either have to be sitting or standing. Walking, you couldn't enter jhana walking, but you could become very mindful walking and then sit down or stand and enter jhana. Or you could be chanting where you're moving your mouth and moving around a bit perhaps, but having chanted and developed strong mindfulness in chanting, then you could sit, meditation and enter jhana perhaps. So, and a lot of our practice is the sort of precursor to states of stillness, samadhi and states of insight. You might think, oh, walking up and down, I'm not that peaceful, but maybe you're still developing some strong mindfulness, walking up and down, doing some walking meditation or chanting. Some people put down chanting or think it's a waste of time, some people. But you can develop very strong mindfulness doing these activities. They're relatively harmless, and there's the opportunity for developing both mindfulness and insight. It may not be to the level of jhana because you'd have to physically stop, but it can support entering jhana in the sense, after you've walked, then you may sit down and enter jhana, or after you've chanted, you may sit and enter jhana. But jhana itself means the absence of the hindrances, no sensual desire, greed, lust, no ill will, no sloth and torpor, no worry, restlessness, agitation, and no skeptical doubt. The mind is one-pointed. There's piti and sukha. So, these are the sort of standard descriptions of the mind in jhana. So are they present or not? And it's not just for a fleeting moment. If you enter jhana, you're going to enter that state usually for quite a long time. And it will be very different than your normal state of mind.
Sadhu Luang Por. Next question, Dear Luang Por, where can we watch the recording of tonight's talk again?
On YouTube, when the monks are kind enough to edit it and put it on. We have a YouTube channel. We've got a bit of backlog at the moment because we had 50 teachers staying here the last few weeks, and 50 teachers means a lot of talks. So there's a bit of a backlog as we're getting them all out, but eventually this talk, as all the others, will get onto our YouTube channel and you'll be able to go back to it.
Okay, another question. Our next questioner has a father who is Buddhist by background, cultural Buddhist, but not Buddhist by practice. And so their question goes, my father is gravely ill. I fear he will soon pass, but I don't know how I should spiritually prepare him. He is listening to the Heart Sutra when he is able to make him calm. Please advise. Thank you.
Listening to chanting, sutras, paritas, Dhamma talks, if he's able to do that, that's a really skillful thing to facilitate for him. If he's very ill, you can help set up the means for him to listen to these things, and you could even read suttas and Dhamma teachings to him. That's a good thing to do, which will help you remind you of the Dhamma as well as him. So maybe you both learn and listen to the Dhamma together. You can also meditate together to the best of your ability. However much you can develop mindfulness in a meditation, do that, and encourage him to do that. You can also discuss aspects of Dhamma, particularly wholesome activities he's engaged in the past. If he's done any kinds of charity, dana, volunteering, helping people, helping the family, helping others, that's something to remember, talk about, give him a sense of his life. There's some good things that he's done in his life, helping the family and so on. And so there is actually quite a lot you can do, all with the idea of helping to bring up wholesome states of mind for him as he's facing perhaps pain, discomfort, fear, worry, and so on. You're helping both to calm him down, but also put his mind, turn it to recollect wholesome things. And as I said, listening to the Dhamma and listening to chanting is a very good thing you can support him with.
Sadhu Luang Por. Next question. When I started practicing meditation and mindfulness regularly, learning to let go and not crave to have or to be anything, I began to feel truly happy and fulfilled. I didn't feel the need to seek or desire anything. This made me feel less motivated to work just to earn money. But in the worldly sense, I still have to make a living and take care of my responsibilities, especially towards my family. In this situation, what guidance would Luang Por give so that I can live well both in the spiritual path and in the worldly path?
Well, it sounds like you're doing the correct thing. You realize that you still do have responsibilities. That's karma, and you can't just neglect your family or your own well-being. So that often means, you have to work, earn a living, but it's for a higher purpose. You're not living to work, you're working to support your Dhamma practice and to fulfill various responsibilities, which is part of your Dhamma practice. So just keep that understanding foremost in your mind so you don't get too attached to the work or too ambitious or too lost in it. And then try to find time to pursue Dhamma practice in different ways, whether it's to do dana or go on retreats, listen to Dhamma talks. You look for the opportunities, find the time where you can. So it could be weekends, days off, holidays. Anytime you can, you see where you can support your Dhamma practice, going deeper into it, doing more meditation. All kinds of opportunities are there if you look for them. People can do temporary ordinations or meditation retreats. They can spend time away from home, but pursuing the Dhamma, or even at home. You can practice the Dhamma, even do a retreat at home, and so on. So there's different things you can do on a daily basis. Leave a little bit of energy left to do your own meditation, listen to the Dhamma, maybe chanting, depending on what you find inspiring. And this way you're balancing up the more ordinary need of earning a living, working, and so on. And in your relations to your family and the people around you, we'll try to relate from a place of Dhamma. Try to use the precepts regularly. Be mindful of what you say, what you do. Try not to harm others. Take advantage of others. See where you can help others. Where you can help others become interested in the Dhamma. If you find that it's benefited you, maybe you can help them to get into the Dhamma as well. You just do what you can in your situation.
Sara Lumpur. Another question. Dear Lumpur, thank you for your beautiful reflections. Lumpur, when I am mindful of what is present in the moment, I could always hear the silence and can't find anyone there. I question the mind. Can I find anyone there? Where is ego? Can I know if I am correct in the way I am questioning from the knowing mind? Thank you very much, Lumpur. May you be well and at peace. Taru.
Sure, that sounds a reasonable way to proceed. We always have these questions like, who is mindful, or who is peaceful, or who is experiencing samati? We love to ask that question because our idea of a self is so ingrained in our culture, everything around us is sort of supporting that. So even with meditation, we're still asking the question and looking, and that's good. We just keep looking, and maybe eventually you'll realize there's nothing there. There's something there, it's just there's no self in it, or there's no self owning it, or it doesn't own you. Your body, your feelings, your thoughts, your memories. This is why the Buddha's way of describing a human being is so helpful. It's breaking everything down into its component parts and giving you the chance to question or to investigate. But keep doing it, because this sense of self is so subtle. You think you've let go of it and your mind is completely empty and free from all, and then you realize, oh, actually it's still there. It's an annoying thing, or slightly disappointing that you think you let go of self and then it rears its head again. So just keep asking the question, but eventually, I guess, you won't have to. One day the sense of self will be completely gone, and then you'll be free.
Sara Lumpur. So we are up to our last question, perhaps. And it seems to be more of a statement. There may be a question in there, but I'll just read it out. Dear Bhante, thank you for sharing the ultimate aims of Buddhist practice, i.e. the achievement of Nibbana. Perhaps for ordinary mortals, our objectives should be more limited. To achieve happiness by overcoming dukkha is perhaps our goal, rather than trying to understand complex concepts such as emptiness. To understand the three characteristics of existence is already an achievement for us who have not renounced. Perhaps the goal for non-renunciants should be more limited so that we don't stress ourselves. Thank you.
Yes, that's a good point. I sometimes use the reflection, wherever suffering is arising, then you have to practice right there. So, you don't have to talk about emptiness, but nobody likes suffering. So just notice if you're getting worked up about something, agitated about something, feeling guilty, unhappy, wherever it is in your mind or in your daily life, then that's where you have to practice. if you're getting angry over things, if you're wanting things and feeling very disappointed that you haven't got what you want, whatever kind of suffering you're still experiencing, that's where you have to practice. And that's a very valid way of practicing. Maybe one day you'll sort of keep clearing away the suffering and the causes of suffering to the point where you realize, oh, this sense of self is the real problem. If I can just catch that, let that go, then yes, then all the suffering will disperse. But at the moment, you maybe just work on suffering. Where am I suffering? Why am I suffering? What can I do about this?
Sadhu Luang Por. One last question has just come in. Dear respected Luang Por, may I know, is metta meditation belonging to samadhi or vipassana meditation? Can practice of metta lead to jhana?
Yes, it can lead to the first jhana. And yes, it's a practice of samatha or samati for developing samadhi, but it can also be a basis for developing panya or vipassana insight as well. The simple practice of vipassana with the practice of metta is after developing metta as an object, and you're developing your mind so it becomes very full of metta in all directions to all beings, which is not a small achievement, but that's your aim. Once you've done that, then you ask, who has the metta? Who does this metta belong to? Am I the metta? Is the metta me? You contemplate all aspects of metta, the peace of it, the goodness of it, the objects of it, to see whether there's any self in any of that. So it can turn into vipassana. And there are people who become enlightened, developing metta and then reflecting on the three characteristics from this place of metta, and they become enlightened. So it's possible. It can be a very good way to practice, isn't it? You can't really separate the practice of the Buddhist path from the quality of metta, although we don't always talk about it at the forefront of the practice. It's always there somewhere. Obviously, if you're still harboring any ill will, hatred, aversion, then you haven't completed the Buddhist path. So it's a very useful way to develop your mind, but on both levels, on the level of samadhi, and then just reflecting on impermanence will also help you deepen your metta, deepen your compassion. The Buddha had the best compassion that the world can have, because he not only understood his mind and how to free it from suffering, but he also could teach that to other people. So that you might call that the perfection of metta or karuna, compassion.
Sadhu Luang Por. That may be all the questions we have for tonight.
We've gone on a long time, so perhaps that's enough for tonight. We can always talk again next time. Anyway, nice to talk to you, and wish you well in your practice, and may you be blessed, and see you again next time.
Sadhu.